Welcome to the Queer Conversation podcast, brought to you by Lotl Media, a show where we discuss all things queer. I am your host, Silke Bader, a publisher and producer in the LGBTQI space in Australia for the past 30 years. We're joined by the brilliant artist and sculptor Jane Cavanough. Jane's work is nothing short of mesmerizing, and her sculptures leave an indelible mark on anyone who encounters them. Welcome to Queer Conversation. You are an artist. You have in the past specialized on outdoor installation. How do you become a successful artist that actually has got art displayed in the city?
I always loved playing outdoors, digging in the mud. I was always making things as a kid. And I thought that because I love being outdoors and making things, that landscape architecture would be a good career for me. Not right. I studied, I got the degree, I worked for 5 years and realised that I wasn't going to be happy in that profession, and I went back to art school in my late 20s, and that was like putting on a glove. But I soon realised that what I learnt as a landscape architect was invaluable, because I knew about construction, I knew about engineering, working in fabrication teams, working in design teams, all of which were incredibly useful for a way that I could work out I can actually make money as an artist if I make work outdoors in landscape settings with design teams. And so I established Outlandish Art and Design, and soon after I left art school, and I've been making urban sculpture for outdoor locations ever since. And that is how I've been able to manage to make a living. At the time when I graduated, it was not a common thing to do. The focus at art school was very much gallery-based, and it was kind of considered a bit lowbrow to be making public work, but I knew for me it was the right place. So to work with those themes is much more engaging for me. To find stories about landscape and people and the place in which they occurred is ultimately really satisfying, because you learn so much in each project that takes you down these cultural and environmental histories that just expand your knowledge.
So in particular, you've been working on an historic project that you've been shortlisted for, which is about queer history.
As one of the artists, I can't remember how many, there were 5 or 6 of us, I think, to come up with a concept proposal initiated by ACON and Waverley Council to be located in Marks Park in Tamarama. The purpose of it was because of gay and transgender hate crimes that were perpetrated between mid-1970s to 2000. There are 88 known deaths, known murders, many unsolved murders that happened in gay beats across Sydney. And unfortunately, I wasn't the chosen artist. However, the design process was something that I drew all my experience of creating other memorials for that project. In designing my Bondi Memorial, I drew upon my landscape architecture experience. I wanted to create a place of contemplation where people could sit comfortably within a space and learn about the 88 plus gay and trans murders. I wanted to bring a sense of remembrance to the work, and I also wanted to bring a sense of celebration and playfulness to the work. So I set up the structure by creating a floating boardwalk that terminated in a triangle. So the triangle is important. It relates back to the pink triangle that is used by gay pride all around the world. And I also wanted to use the symbolism of the rainbow flag. And so in setting up the space with the floating boardwalk and the triangle that terminates and overlooks the ocean, that's about healing as well, taking in the ocean, the expanse of the ocean. But you also walk past 3 quite large glass light boxes. I've worked with glass quite a few times in my work, and it's got really great options for working with translucency, transparency, and planes of opaque colour. And it's also got a very intriguing feel to it, because as the sun moves over it, it animates the glass. Light coming from within, light coming without, it in shadow, in light. And I thought that's a really great way to incorporate symbolism into the work. So these giant-sized light boxes feature abstracted planes of colour which are taken from the rainbow flag, and they're animated in forms that show attraction, because the work is located at Marks Park, which was a beat. And then I also wanted to work with that attracting quality of glass, you know, where you're peering into it and you're thinking, how on earth is this made? And it's beautiful, really beautiful. So I wanted to bring beauty into the work. And also the verticality of the light boxes represented the cliffs, because there were known gangs across Sydney, several of them, more than several, one of which was in Bondi. They were called the PSK, the Parkside Killers, made up of kids between 12 and 19. And most of these gangs were youth. Along the pathway, there's an inscription from Sue Thompson, who was the gay and lesbian liaison officer with the police at the time. And it says the easiest thing was herding them off a cliff. So these groups, these gangs would surround individuals and virtually just herd them off the cliff. There's another quote from Justice Kirby, who mentions that the complacency of the police in investigating the crimes. The police concluded for decades that so many murders happened because so many deaths happened because they were suicides. And it wasn't until 2015 that Operation Parabella was established by the New South Wales Police to investigate the murders. It's just staggering to realise this. And you know, at the time when I was young with Mardi Gras and so on, the Darlinghurst Police Station was notorious for the violent way that gay men in particular were treated. Notorious.
Unfortunately, you weren't successful with the installation. As a creative person, what do you do with that?
I was very disappointed not to have got the job. One of the legacies, I think, of my career is the Korean War Memorial. And that's when I learnt the importance of bringing remembrance, commemoration and contemplation into a space that offers the ability for not only public commemoration but private emotion, and using materials in a way that promotes the concept, the design concept of the piece. So knowing the importance of that legacy and that memorial, which is located in Moore Park on Anzac Parade in Sydney, was soon recognised. Well, it was registered as a monument of national significance, and there were only 6 in Australia at the time, a military monument of national significance. So I knew the power of that creating a memorial as opposed to a monument can have. And then following that, there was all the stuff about what role monuments play in Black Lives Matter and memorials can play. And a memorial is a much more delicate, nuanced, creative process.
So talk a little bit then about your current work and the exhibition.
It's a Saatchi art fair, and it's at the White Bay Cruise Terminal. So it's near the Biennale, which is a fantastic location. This current set of work is a real move away from my large-scale sculpture. It's designed for private collectors and galleries. It's a series of wall pieces, mixed media wall pieces, designed and fabricated in the very same way that I would do my sculpture. It's also about environment and memory and loss. It's focusing on endangered species, and but at a much smaller scale. And it's been a real joy to move away from a prescribed brief to something that I'm particularly interested in. The work stems from the 2019 and 2020 fires, and I live in the Southern Highlands, and we were surrounded by the fires for several months. There was this huge amount of roadkill on the roads before with the drought, and the loss of native species was particularly upsetting. And so I was looking for a way to express my feeling of grief at the loss of all these animals, and how do you process the fires? You know, it was just such a stressful time. And so I've drawn actually upon the modernist art movement and pop art to create a series of monochromatic panels that are very brightly coloured, just two contrasting colours with laser cut imagery screwed to the aluminium backing plates and overlaid by a shadow of fluorescent perspex, which is a cutout of the animal. And when the light hits the perspex, it creates this luminous outline. So it's not only a shadow or a memory, but it's also, to me, highlighting the importance of endangered species and how we can't ignore their plight.
And how can people see that, if at all, if they can't make it to the art show?
They're uploaded onto the Saatchi website, and my website's janecavanough.com.au. So hopefully I'll sell them all.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, or Facebook using the tag @LottleMedia, or head over to our website lotl.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.